Hey YouTube, we are back with a tier 10 tier list for bug stratagems. Okay, we've been playing a lot of Terminids over the last week since we got the new tier 10, and things have been shaken up more so than I thought. You know, I knew that the new enemy types would shake some things up, you know, new weapons being useful in this situation or that situation, but I didn't expect the variety of enemies to change all that much. But I gotta say, the average mission has a ton of the new brood commanders, which has really shaken up the meta, more so than I really thought. And impalers have some interesting hitboxes, and some weapons are very proficient versus them, and some are not. So we're gonna go through this tier list. This is gonna be a 4-player co-op, tier 10 super Helldive bugs mission. So just keep a heads up. You know, if you're someone that really likes something because you run it in solos, or you know, depending on how you play, you may put something higher or lower. So just keep that in mind before you go into the comments and you start, streamer, you're stupid. You know, I use it this way and it's super good. That's fucking great. Please tell me if you utilize a stratagem in a different way that I like recognized, or maybe it's better than I'm leading on to, or worse than I'm leading on to. Please let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to know what you guys think. And yeah, let's get into it. For those wondering, S tier is my like section where I would say that this is a stratagem that performs much better at a lot of things. Maybe not everything, but a lot of things better than most. This is something that you can easily pick to make your mission easier. A tier is something that its strength is very proficient at that thing, but maybe it struggles in 1 or 2 separate instances, right? B tier, it's good and it has a strength somewhere, but it has clear downsides somewhere else, to the point where if you bring these, you are going to be making your life and your mission quite a bit harder in some situations, right? It might be very fun to use, but it will struggle in some situations. C tier is you're more or less picking this for fun, and because there are very clear downsides picking this, and you might as well pick something else from the higher tiers that performs better in that role. And then needs changes are like the ones that I just, please don't bring. If you're on my team, just please don't bring any of these. They are stratagems that need a loving hand or redesign from Arrowhead to make them more proficient. All right, starting off with the AMR, pretty disappointed in this pick. It went from being an okay tier 9, like, and I mean like okay, sort of, being able to one-tap ball spewers and brood commanders, to honestly being very disappointing. It doesn't even one-tap a brood, like the new brood commander, which is really sad. This is just basically a bot's weapon. I can't recommend bringing it to a bugs mission unless they give us the ability to see if like we're going to be dealing with ball spears. If we can see that we can deal with ball spears, you're all of a sudden one-tapping them. But versus chargers, it's not very good. It's about like 1 full magazine to the butt, which can, you know, depending on accuracy at close range, can be pretty difficult. It's not great versus ball titans. Versus the impaler, it takes about 2 magazines to take out. So not fantastic there either. And then brood commanders doesn't one-tap them. I still can't get behind that. It's crazy to me that it doesn't work like that. But, you know, let me know if you guys have found some way to make it more useful. Going to Railgun, I think it's like a middle A minus. I think at this point, the Railgun just has a bad PR team at this point, because it's actually quite effective versus a lot of what the Terminids throw at you. It's a great combo weapon for Ball Titans. 1 AT shot plus only like 2 or 3 Railgun shots is enough to kill a Ball Titan, depending on the AT shot actually registering its damage. We all know that Ball Titans are notoriously inconsistent at the moment. Please, Arrowhead, please fix. But it's also like 1-tapping ball spewers. It's 3-tapping a charger's leg armor, or 2-tapping the new spore charger or regular charger. It fits into the Terminid loadouts, and it's fairly good. It can deal with brood commanders quite effectively too. It doesn't take much of a charge at all. Maybe like, I think the average charge I would go for is like 70%. Where this thing kind of falls short is it's not great against Shrieker Dens, it's not great against Spore Blooms, and obviously taking on a Ball Titan by itself, you know, you're looking at almost 10 shots, which is at that point kind of, you're not going to want to try it, right? You're not going to want to do it. So maybe a little more love for the Railgun in the future, maybe more durable damage, so it can do a bit more, but it's honestly in a fairly good spot if you can hit your shots and you have like a pretty good like eye for the charge bar. You know, like you will be taking out a lot of chargers if you're someone who doesn't want to take an AT, or shoot at the butt of a charger, right? You want to deal with it before it gets to you. It's very good. All right, laser cannon is like a middle B. I feel like it's getting better and better for Zadclear, and I love the new laser change, being able to light enemies on fire if you hold it on them, but it still struggles against chargers. It does not kill chargers really effectively at all. It's kind of like a meme pick versus Ball Titans. You can technically do it. It just takes forever. So until they either change Bile Titans to have like a medium pen stomach, or, you know, maybe they give it some interesting things or different characteristics, the laser cannon is just kind of down in this spot. So quick side note, one of the ways I'd love to change the laser cannon would be the higher heat you have, the more damage and pen it has. So you kind of have this mini game of trying to keep the heat of the laser cannon as high as possible. And then all of a sudden it can go through the leg of a charger, but you have to dance at the higher heat band. Maybe this is like an unsafe version of the laser cannon. If it overheats, it blows up. Who knows? If they could do something like that, I think it'd be really cool. All right, going with the EAT, still a solid like A+ stratagem. If the railgun is like A-, you know, EAT is still a fantastic option for killing charges because you can throw the stratagem at it. The Hell Pod lands on it, kills it. If you get good at that, it's very effective. But then also the EAT is fantastic against all of the anti-armor or any armored enemies on the tournament front. Just remember, forward momentum versus behemoth chargers, it will one-tap the leg armor, so then you can just primary it down. A lot of people don't know that. Hopefully they change in the future so you don't need to have the forward momentum, but it is an inevitability at the moment. Grenade launcher is very similar to laser cannon, where I feel like it's in a relatively good spot if they just change it a little bit, right? It does a ton of damage, kills chargers quite fast. You know, aim for like their butt, the lower part of their butt. You can kill a charger in like 3 shots to their butt, I'm pretty sure it is. And like, if you pair it with the supply backpack, it's fantastic, but it feels like it needs the supply backpack to be useful. It doesn't have enough magazines in reserve. It needs at least two more magazines in reserve for me to feel like I don't need to bring the supply backpack for it to be like a natural proper support weapon. Especially with how long the bug breaches are going. 3 mags, you're getting through that so fast. Even with like calling in a resupply, you're only getting 2 on it. Like it needs more reserves. Please. Stalwart, I want to put it in like C-, but man, am I tempted to put it in like need changes like badly, right? And the reason for this is that its light pen just means that it gets outclassed by so many medium pen weapons, including the MG43 we're going to talk about in a second. I like the Stalwart, but on lower difficulties. It's fun for shooting. It's like a very fun weapon in general, just to like be Rambo and just be spraying everything, not having to reload very much. But its actual usefulness is quite low in the grand scheme of things because it's not very good against the new Brood Commander. It's not good against chargers. It's not good against Bile Spears if you run into them. Like, it's not good against Hive Guardians. Like, it has this niche versus like certain small like hunters and stuff, but why don't you just bring the Cookout or the Incinder Breaker or the Blitzer or like all these primary weapons that are like, or the Sickle even, to utilize that like ammo regen so you have a feeling of using that. Like, it's just, the Stalwart is just not in a great spot. And honestly, I think it hovers between C- and needs changes badly. Okay, going into Spear, I still think that the Spear is like a solid A-. The problem being is that it's not fantastic versus Impalers, and then Chargers, it goes over their bodies too often if you're even at like slightly mid-range. If it was more reliable with connecting with the Charger's head at fairly close quarters, I would want to put it higher, or putting it like if it was more consistent versus Bile Titans, for instance, right? It suffers from the same problem versus Bile Titans as every other AT weapon, where it sometimes impacts the head. Should one-shot it, it doesn't, right? So we run into that issue on top of that. Impalers, it takes 2 shots on average, hitting their neck. If it brought down to a consistent 1 shot, I definitely want to put this higher than like the A tier. Overall, I think the Spear is in a good spot, though. It just, you need to play around needing distance. But if you get a Bile Titan variant, which I've been getting them fairly recently, where like every bug breach has like 2 or 3 Bile Titans, it's very useful in those situations. So you don't need to use those orbital positions as often. So, yeah. All right, going into the Flamethrower. The Flamethrower is a bit of an interesting one. I think it's similar to the Laser Cannon in the sense that it is in an awkward spot now that they've changed it versus the Charger's leg, not allowing the flame to go through your Charger's leg. It needs something. It needs more range. It needs maybe more pen. It needs to be able to break the armor of a Charger's leg or that in general. Maybe like if they gave it more pen, it would be able to kill a Bile Titan if you went underneath and shot it into their stomach. It just needs something. Also for like chaff clearing, far too often you try to bring the Flamethrower. If you're not someone that has like a supply backpack or just stims in reserve, you're gonna be taking so much damage from your own fire or hunters jumping on you. Because there's no like stagger component, the hunters are jumping right through your flame and attacking you. So it's still a fairly good choice, but it could be a lot better. Bring stun grenades with it. You can still kill Chargers' butts fairly fast. It's about like quarter, third mag to kill it. And then, you know, lighting the ground on fire, retreating, lighting the ground on fire, and then spewing flame and anything that's close. It works. It just doesn't work super well. And I do hope it gets that lift that it needs in the future. Okay, going to the MG43, I do think it's just a better flamethrower. And honestly, at times even better than the grenade launcher. I'm really enjoying the MG43. I even debated saying like, oh, is it an A-? It's very close. It's very close. I just, it needs, I don't know what it really needs other than like higher pen, but if it gets higher pen, that's where the HMG comes in. It's in a good spot. It really is, especially if you're bringing the support backpack, the supply backpack. You can kind of just spray it. It's a ton of fun to use. It's very good versus any kind of medium target. Obviously, you're not going to be killing Shrieker Dens and Spore Blooms with it. And Chargers are pretty tanky, even to the butt. So, keep that in mind. But, I could easily bring this and have a lot of fun with it in tier 10s. I don't think it's like a troll pick. And honestly, I like certain people, I would even put it into A-, and I don't think that's like a bad choice at all. I'm putting it like B+, A- in that regard. Okay. For an unfortunate one, we're going to put the Arc Thrower down here somewhere in the B tier, B-. The Arc Thrower needs some love. Definitely does. But also they've added enemies that the Arc Thrower is just bad against. The Impaler, it's not good against. It takes forever to kill an Impaler. But also they've added the Behemoth Charger and it's just not good against the Behemoth Charger. Like the Arc Thrower went from being actually like a good weapon versus Chargers to being utterly atrocious. Like it was only 6 shocks to the forehead versus a normal Charger. And now we're looking at like on average, I feel like I'm like 10 plus. And, there's some debate on like, if they just revert the range and revert the fire rate, would it be back to like where it was? I still don't think so, because it would still take too long to kill Behemoth Chargers, but at least it would be in a better spot. It's still a good ad clear weapon. So if you're like clearly just talking about it from like an ad clear perspective, it's like fairly good. I just feel like it should do so much better versus Chargers. And I feel like in a lot of situations, because of the extra range of some other weapons, I have a hard time wanting to put it any higher than like a flamethrower or a laser cannon. But the tracking on it is a lot better now with the recent change in the patch. A lot of people not talking about it, but Arc Thrower and Blitzer got a huge benefit to the tracking. So somewhere in here, not sure. I would put it somewhere in here. All right, Quasar, still a fantastic option, A+. It's coming down a little bit because it's not very good versus the Impalers. You want to typically need about 2 AT shots to kill it, and because it's not as strong and they still haven't fixed the Bile Titan problems, it's a bit lower. The immediacy of your damage when you have so many more enemies is definitely showing showing that it's like bringing down the Quasar, right? Having to wait 15 seconds between shots is balanced, but when you have a bunch of enemies that like are just laughing at you and you shoot them one time and then you have to wait 15 seconds like dancing around, it can be pretty rough. You need a little bit more immediacy, which is why we're going to quickly swap to Recoilless. I think the Recoilless is a solid A pick. As long as you're doing the forward momentum versus a Behemoth Charger, such a good pick for dealing with Chargers. If they are annoying you, this is a great pick option. Aim for the leg, forward momentum, super good. You'll get better at it over time. And then just remember to animation cancel at the reload. Watch the icon on the bottom left when it gets colored in white. Then you can just stand up, press your crouch key, and you can stand up and do it. All right, Airburst. It needs changes, man. What is this thing doing? Faster reload, less team killing, probably more damage and armor pen. Don't bring it. For the love of all your teammates that you will be playing with, please don't bring it. It can be fun to use on defense missions and lower difficulties, but you will be hoping and wishing you had something else in a lot of situations. All right, the Commando, I think, is a better EAT in some situations and a worse EAT in others. So it's fantastic for the Chargers because it's always a 2-tap to the head, which is fantastic. So you can just run around with it, kill 2 Chargers, call on another one, kill 2 more Chargers. That's great. But versus some other enemies, it can feel a little lacking. Versus Bile Titans, I sometimes have trouble getting that like 3-tap or 2-tap. Just because of like when they recoil from the first, sometimes the second one at their shoulder and stuff like that. You could say that's like to some extent skill problem, but I wish it was a little bit more consistent versus Bile Titans because I have a better time shooting an EAT and double tapping them. But obviously EAT sometimes run into the issue where you don't have enough damage because of the problem with Bile Titan heads. So maybe after the Bile Titan's head gets fixed, maybe this will change in the future. And like maybe we're going to be saying like the Commando is just the all-around best weapon because you'll be 2-tapping Bile Titans, or maybe it'll be the opposite where the EAT comes back. I think depending on playstyle, you can kind of go back and forth, but it is an awesome support weapon to just bring in conjunction to your other weapons. So like MG43 plus a Commando, MG43 plus an EAT, super cool combos because the MG43 not great versus your Bile Titans, but you bring something else for that. Autocannon, easy S tier. And I don't think it's like that much better than everything else that it needs to be nerfed. I'm just saying that like does so well versus so many different enemies. Impalers, Brood Commanders, it can weaken Bile Titans, and it can take out Chargers fairly well if you get used to shooting them as they run by you in the butt. It's really strong, especially if you pair with a primary weapon that's good at like ad clear, like the, Blitzer, Cookout, Incinerate Breaker, of that nature, right? Like it's quite good. It's quite good. Highly recommend bringing that in conjunction with some like AT. So I'll bring it with like a 500 kg oral precision, and it combos well with that because the autocannon's not good against those heavier targets, but you have something if you need it to die in that moment. Heavy machine gun was a difficult one for me. I do prefer it over the MG43, especially when you bring the supply backpack and you're someone who tap fires. Don't full auto spam it because a lot of the bullets will just hit the dead bodies of the enemies you just killed. But if you start tap firing it and you bring the peak physique armor, I really like bringing this thing. It's good for killing charges, but it's good for killing an impaler. It's good for like Brood Commanders. It's good for like warriors and hunters. Like it feels good, man. Just tap fire away with the ammo backpack if you want. Let's buy backpack, and it'll surprise you. Just remember, bring the peak physique armor, and if you want to complete the loadout, bring the supply backpack, and then never empty the clip. Always reload a little early so you get that much faster reload. Like if you empty the clip, this thing feels like it takes forever to reload. But if you leave the last couple rounds and then reload, so there's actually bullets still chambered, it's way faster. Highly recommend. All right, Ballistic Shield. Until this thing allows you to like block melee, it's terrible. They need to adjust that, make it better. Also, it just dies so easily. It's not like you can tank like a Bile Titan or a Bile Spewer all that well. It needs more love. It needs changes. Supply backpack is like a solid A+. Honestly, even an S-, just because ammo economy is such a concern in tier 10s. It seems like most weapons and stratagems are balanced around like, tier 7 ammo economies and stuff like that. But like all the new enemies that we're getting and so many more enemies, the supply backpack feels very necessary to have like one on a team just for a little bit better ammo economy for both yourself and your teammates. Like you don't need it, but oh my, is it so useful to have one teammate that runs around resupplying people or just resupplying themselves and spamming something like the HMG or like the MG43 or grenade launcher and stuff like that. I'm going to keep it an S- for now, but I honestly think it deserves to be there. It is fantastic. I want to put the shield generator in like a middle A section. It's a great choice for anyone that is really annoyed with like hunters or ragdoll. It's still a good option if you don't have a backpack already on and you're just getting annoyed by impalers. This will reduce your frustration a decent amount and keep you alive if you feel like your team is like running low on revives. If you're getting to the end of missions and you're running low or you have none left, this will reduce it quite a bit, and it will help you learn the new like intricacies of like level 10, right? Like how do I position myself differently? What weapons should I have and not have? It gives you more breathing room essentially. So I think it's a solid choice still in tournament missions. I think the jetpack is just like a fun choice. It's like a B-. It's fun. It's just, it needs a lower cooldown before I can recommend it. It can be fairly useful on maps where there's like a lot of elevation changes, so you can get high ground so enemies stop attacking you. But it still needs a lower cooldown for me to want to put it higher than that. If it had a lower cooldown, like half, oh my god, it would be so much fun. And I don't think it would be that broken if they just like reduced the cooldown by half. Like it would just be a fun backpack. And it would be arguably a lot better too. All right, AR-23. This is a fun one. I love the changes that they did. Not only allowing you to get ammo from bricks on the ground, but also just having more ammo in reserve as well. It's in a better spot, but it still doesn't have medium pen, and the magazine is atrociously small. It still feels like it's spending more time reloading on your backpack than actually shooting, and I don't think that's a good thing. It should have like that 40 round, 45 round Liberator mag, and right now I'm pretty sure it has like 20, 25 rounds. So Arrowhead, please, medium pen, 45 round magazine. I think this thing would be cooking. It'd be very good. That being said, I think the laser backpack is the better option. I put it right next to the shield generator on purpose. It's still a great option for someone who's just like doesn't want to deal with the scavengers, leapers, hunters that are running at them, or even warriors. It's a good helper. Also, when you walk up to an impaler, it will start shooting the impaler, helping you kill a little faster. It's kind of nice. That also though, in the known issues on the recent patch, they said that they have identified, or finally identified, because we all kind of already knew, the laser guard dog doesn't really overheat. So they've noticed that finally. So in the near future, it might overheat faster. I just hope that when they do that change, they give it back the 30% damage it lost some months ago. Okay. Both mechs, I think, are like solid B minus choices. Higher if you are doing shorter missions. So if you're doing like a blitz mission, it's like an A or an S, you know, because it's so good at just like running into a bug nest, blowing up all the bug holes, and then running on out. And you just feel really tanky in tournament missions because of that. But for the longer 40-minute missions, it doesn't feel great because you only have 2 uses, long cooldown, and not much ammo. So until they give us that vehicle like bay ship upgrades that give us those things that we're looking for, it's like not a meme choice. And honestly, I did almost forget to mention that the mechs are very good against impalers if impalers are bothering you, because the tentacles don't really hurt the mechs all that much. They can take like 40 pincer attacks or so, as long as you don't get sent flying. Sometimes when the pincers go for you, it'll like pick you up and send you flying. Kind of silly, but at the same time, you won't die because you'll land and your mech's like, yo, what the hell just happened? But the mechs are very good at killing impalers also. Very low shots to kill an impaler. I think it's around 8 shots of the Emancipator. That's 8 total ammo. And then the Patriot is like 80 or so machine gun shots. I think it might be a little lower, or 3 rockets. So you can slay impalers with the mechs. But the mechs are still not great in a lot of situations due to the cooldown and their ammo economy. And there's just so many bugs that you're going to feel like the ammo is even stretched even thinner. So I just hope in the future that they get some love. Orbital EMS is like a C+. I want it to be able to stun impalers. I want it to be able to stun Bile Titans. I want it to last longer, have a larger radius. It needs some love going forward. And until then, I think it's like a C. I don't recommend it at all. Orbital Precision, solid AF. Highly recommend. It is very good for taking out impalers, Bile Titans, chargers, with stun grenades. It works really well. I don't think more needs to be said. It's a great option and highly recommend, especially now that Orbital Scatter is gone. So now I don't have like any reason not to put an S tier, right? Just bring it. I highly recommend. Walking Barrage, I think, is like a low B now that they've changed it. I'm still preferring other barrages over it, but it's in this step in the right direction. So if you didn't see, it reduced how fast it moves along its path by 40%. So it takes longer to get A to B, but they also gave it more salvos. So basically what that means is that it'll be more condensed number of shots in that same distance, which is nice, but it's still very niche because it feels like you need to have a bug breach in the distance and you to be like 100, 200 meters away, then you throw it, and then it kills the enemies that are walking towards you, which it's fairly good at. But I feel like in a lot of situations for bug breaches, bug breach happens, and it happens within 50 meters of you, right? The perfect throwing range of a 380. Because you put 380 between you and the bug breach, and you just step back a little bit, and it's going to fire way more shots in a more controlled area, which is really strong. Orbital Laser is in somewhat of a similar spot. It's like a medium pick, medium B, like a middle B. There's so many armored enemies now that are coming out of bug breaches that it's not very useful versus bugs. It's nice to just throw and forget on tier 10, but it's going to get caught up on charges. It's going to get caught up on Bile Titans. It's going to get caught up on impalers now, and it doesn't kill any of the things I just listed in a timely order. So like, just so much of it is wasted. The 380 is a tough one. I've been debating all week with my chat, like, is it S tier? And honestly, I think you could either put it in, like, it's for the right kind of person, I think it's S tier. I've been bringing it so much and just throwing at least one on a bug breach. I love it for both bugs and bots. When a bug breach happens or a bot drop happens, I put it right in the middle and I walk backwards. Tell your teammates that it's happening and just watch a ton of chargers, a ton of Bile Titans just fall over. This thing does great. Basically, the way you want to use it, though, is don't throw it exactly at the bug breach. Throw it a little bit closer to you, so more enemies have to walk through the entire radius of the 380, so you get more value out of it. Highly recommend bringing at least 1 or 2 of these per tier 10. It's fantastic for throwing at the big nests. It's fantastic for bug breaches because you get this back before the next bug breach almost always, unless it's at the tail end of the mission and the bug breach timer is very low. It's fantastic. Highly recommend. Orbital Smoke just needs changes. It has a very terrible spread. There's a lot of gaps and stuff like that where enemies will see you. I think it was Riken who put out a great video some time ago, a couple months ago, where it's like the orbital smoke will like put a plume around you, like a circle around you. You throw it at your feet and it does like a circle around you, kind of giving you some amount of protection around you. I thought that was such a cool idea and I would love to see that happening. All right, Orbital Airburst. It's kind of like a B+. I still love it, but it needs some changes for the higher difficulties. It doesn't quite have enough pen, and I feel like it's overkilling too often in bug missions. If it had more of a delay between shots and it had like 1 to 2 extra volleys, it would be in a much better position. I love the lower cooldown I got some time ago, but I feel like I don't like using it nearly as much, especially when we're getting a lot of bug breaches that are like they're separate holes and they're like more spread out. I would find myself rather bringing the orbital Gatling. I think this thing is fantastic. It's not really dealing with your like super high health bugs, but it's so good to throw out a breach and kill brood commanders, all of the chaff a lot of the time. You can throw it at a impaler and sometimes it'll outright kill it. Takes some time, like almost the entire duration, but it can kill an impaler outright depending on where the shots are landing and what direction. If it's hitting the neck, it'll die faster. Really good spot, almost S tier for me. The only reason it's not is if it had like a little bit like larger radius when it was firing all those shots, so it, or more damage per shot, so it was dealing with like bigger targets, would help it kind of get a little higher. But honestly, it's in a fantastic spot. Wouldn't change it. Over to rail. I'm gonna put this like low A, almost a B plus. I still think it needs to be changed. It needs a lower cooldown or more damage per shot, so it's like a guaranteed kill on impaler or a Bile Titan. It doesn't guarantee kill either of those. It leaves them at like 1 HP essentially for either one. Like it really does almost kill them, but it needs more. If this thing got like a 20-25% damage buff, so it could actually one-shot a Bile Titan and impaler consistently, they wouldn't have to change the cooldown and it would actually be like in a solid A pick. But because it's slowly getting power crept and they're adding enemies that it's not good against, yeah, I can't really necessarily recommend. It's nice to have on the lower difficulties when you're just getting annoyed by one charger and it can just instantly like kill that charger or Bile Titan that's chasing you. But yeah, I'm gonna put it like a B plus, but honestly, maybe it deserves to be A minus. Let me know in the comments what you think. But yeah. Orbital Gas is another one of those that I think it needs some love in the harder difficulties. We have Bile Titans, we have Chargers, and we now have Impalers, and all these things are strong against the Orbital Gas. Like, I find myself wanting to use different Eagles instead, and it just, larger radius would be nicer, or like, maybe like, it does like more of an explosion, or some people have said like, can you light the gas on fire? You know, so it causes like an explosion afterwards. So it's kind of like a combo weapon. It kind of just needs a little more love, because when you're staring at a bug breach, I would much rather have the napalm, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. All right, going into the 120mm barrage, I think it's like a solid A tier, maybe A plus. I really enjoy using this thing. Similar reasons to the 380, but I don't think it's quite as good as the 380 because it requires an extra hit to kill a lot of those high HP targets. It can one-shot a Charger. It can't one-shot a Bile Titan or a Impaler. I think it actually might be able to one-shot a Bile Titan if it like got really lucky and hit the head, but I don't know. That's up for some debate. I'm sure the people that can number crunch can tell me down below. But strong. It got a 60-second reduction and it comes down a lot faster. I love using this thing on bug breaches and like large patrols or like defense missions. It's great. Highly recommend giving it a try, especially since it didn't really have an identity before. It definitely does now. 500 kg still deserves to be in the S tier for anyone that is out there and needs more consistent ways to kill Bile Titans. And people might be like, you just said consistency and 500 kg. How my brain is malfunctioning? It's because you get 2. And yes, it is very good at killing Bile Titans, and it is still good at killing Impalers and Chargers. There is some funkiness with it. I completely agree, but you get 2 of them in almost the same amount of cooldown as you have the Orb Precision. Being able to just throw it out is very useful. Don't use it as like a chaff killing weapon. That is what the orbital airstrike, or sorry, for the Eagle airstrike is for, killing your Chargers and killing your chaff and so on and so forth. But it's not very good versus Bile Titans and Impalers. You can get a one-shot on Impaler, but more often than not, you need 2 to get like, it's similar to like on the Factory Strider, right? Like you can technically kill a Factory Strider if it like every bomb lands on the Factory Strider in like the perfect pattern, but more often than not, it's going to take like 2. So highly recommend still using the 500 kg versus Bile Titans, Chargers, stun grenade plus that versus a Charger, or, versus Impaler. I had several instances where like 3 Impalers came out, threw it right in the middle of 3 Impalers, killed all 3. Now, is it inconsistent at times? Yes, but does it need to change? If it did, this thing would be like outshining even the airstrike if they buffed it. I don't know if you can necessarily like make it super consistent without making it like nuts. I don't know. All right. Eagle strafing is like meh. I like the changes that they made to it in the previous patch, but it feels very meh. it's fun to use on the lower difficulties, but on the higher difficulties, it feels like it's just tickling enemies far too often, and it leaves way too much chaff alive. If there was a better spread, like it was more consistent at killing those enemies within it, or it affected more enemies at the same like amount, it'd be nice. But yeah, it's tickling too many enemies, and I want it to do more overall damage. So I'm gonna put it somewhere in the B. I can't necessarily recommend it. I feel like I would much rather you bring like Eagle Cluster. Eagle Cluster is still a fantastic choice for tier 10s. And you might be like, why? There's so many armored enemies. It still can kill a charger if it lands behind the charger. But then also, it's fantastic for killing the relentless amount of brood commanders and enemies of that type. And because you get 5 charges of it, you can often spam all 5 out over the course of a bug breach because they last a long time. And then it'll go on cooldown. 2 minutes later, you have it back for the next bug breach. And you can just keep spamming this. So if your team is getting overwhelmed by like brood commanders, hunters, and so on and so forth, this is fantastic. Just don't throw it at your teammates. Be careful. Eagle Napalm is a like solid A- in my opinion. It's really nice for killing chargers and laying out that fire, and it can kill a lot of chaff for you. The reason why I put it higher than gas is because there is an explosive component when it lands. Boom, 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 boom. And when it does that, it can land on a charger and kill it outright. And it can do a lot of damage to a Ball Titan and Impaler. So because it has the damage over time component, it has a larger radius, and it has the explosion. And you get 3 of them. You can use same thing as the cluster. You can throw out 3 over the course of an entire bug breach. So there's always a napalm active, right? And then you should have it back by the time the next bug breach happens. It's fantastic. I do highly recommend using that or the cluster if you feel like you're running into a lot of chaff problems. 110mm rocket pods is an awkward one. I want to love it more, but it needs more love. It needs to do the previous amount of damage and get the consistency buff that it got in the last big patch. I find too often it's like chipping away at an enemy, but not enough to like open up the shoulder on a Bile Titan, or enough to like break a leg or kill a charger outright. And you only get 3 uses of it. So I feel like I would just rather bring the Eagle Airstrike, or I'm going to bring the 500 kg, or I'm going to bring it over precision if I'm taking out higher HP armored enemies. Like it just needs some love. It needs to do that higher amount of damage, and I would love it that much more. Eagle Smoke will be like C-. It works and it puts it out in a line. It's just smoke is not particularly good in Terminated tier 10 4-player co-op missions. Stealth just doesn't work very well. There are niche situations where like you can like smoke off, a patrol from like aggroing you, and I do see the purpose in that, but I feel like I would rather just be able to just kill the patrol outright with like an Eagle Airstrike rather than it just like hiding from it for like less than 30 seconds, All right, going into the first turret, we have the rocket sentry. It's still a fantastic choice ever since they buffed its ammo economy and just being able to deal with chaff and all of the armored enemies. I really enjoy it. It's just a good one. Find some high ground. It will just fire forever, it feels like. It almost has enough ammo to expend all of its resources, and you almost get the next one back if you can keep it alive. Really enjoy using it. Just be careful not to like put it next to your enemy or your teammates, and then they're going to just constantly be getting like stun locked by the backblast. Silly, but yeah. Gatling Sentry is like a solid B pick. It just kind of just runs out of ammo too fast. It's really good for killing the chaff, but I would rather grab another stratagem that has more killing potential over its entire cooldown. Because the Gatling Sentry has a 3-minute cooldown, and it can get a lot of kills in a bug breach, but it will not last you the entire bug breach like a Rocket Sentry will. It will not get you as many kills in total as a Rocket Sentry will, and it won't deal with your armored enemies like a Rocket Sentry will. Machine Gun Sentry, very similar, just different. 2-minute cooldown, less total ammo, but you get the shorter cooldown, so it's nice for being like more aggressive and taking out patrols and stuff like that, or like your hunter spam. Just same kind of issue though, that like it still has a fairly long cooldown, and I feel like I would rather take Cluster for dealing with a lot of those enemies at a distance with a bug breach. You have the autocannon. I think the autocannon has dropped a little bit just because it doesn't have nearly as much ammo as the rocket sentry. It has higher DPS, but I don't value that DPS as much as like raw ammo economy in a tier 10 bug breach. This thing will only last you like a third to half of the bug breach, whereas the rocket sentry will just keep killing things continuously for you. It just has so much more ammunition. The autocannon sentry maybe does need a little bit more ammo like other sentries, or a lower cooldown to compensate for like just less overall uptime in these harder missions. Tesla Tower, I think, is like a solid C+. It can, in situations, be good if you can put it in a good situation, but until they allow it to survive at least one charger impact from like a charging charger, I don't think it'll be any higher. Like, it requires such precise placement to be like ultra effective. And like your bug breach will never be like always right next to it, or like by a high cliff so you can put it on the cliff that actually won't bounce it. You know, if they change stratagems to not bounce so often off of certain terrain, you know, I think the Tesla Tower would easily be bumped up to at least a B tier because it'd be easier to put it in places. But at the moment, it's really struggles to find that place. We have the shield generator. I'd like it to see like maybe enemies have to attack the HP before they can enter. You know, like similar to how like the charger, when they're charging, they bump into the actual shield generator shield, and then they can walk through. I would like it so like more enemies like feel like they have to attack the shield's HP, then they can enter. I think that'd be really cool for those moments, but also like increasing the duration and the overall HP would be very important also to me. HMG turret is like a solid B pick. It's fun to use. You can kill a lot of enemies with it, but it means that you're not shooting your primary weapon. You're not shooting your support weapon. You are the turret. So if you can't get a ton of value out of it, you're kind of like wasting your time when you could have just taken a Gatling sentry and you're shooting your weapons and it's shooting at the same time. Do you get what I mean? It's also not super effective versus chargers and battle titans, which you already know, so that definitely hurts it. It's good against impalers if you can get a line of sight on it when it's coming out of the bug breach. So if you like optimally have an awesome spot, you can slay out with this thing. But I think in a lot of situations, you're either going to be forced off of it because a charger shows up, a battle titan shows up, or like a tentacle starts bothering you and stops you from doing stuff. EMS mortar, I think, is still a fantastic option versus bugs, bringing it for those bug breaches, stunning those bug breaches. It's great versus defensive missions in general. You're not really screwing over your teammates, so even if it drops on your teammates, you're actually helping them because it's going to stun all the enemies that are bothering your teammates in close range. So highly recommend. It's good support stratagem to bring, and with the added ship module to aim it when you ping things, it just makes it that much more useful. Would be nice if it could stun like an impaler, but I kind of get it. Impalers and battle titans are on the same class, so maybe Orbital EMS can do it. Okay. The regular mortar is like a B tier. And the reason I'm going to put it here and not higher, because it does deserve to be higher in like a defensive mission, right? Unlike defensive missions, if your entire team brings double mortar, it's incredibly good for that high value asset, you know, defense mission for the rockets. It does so well. You can basically almost go AFK and only have to kill battle titans and chargers. It kills everything else. But the issue is that we need to do an overarching like a tier list, and on 40-minute missions, it's just not good. I do not recommend bringing it on 40-minute missions. Far too often it will kill your teammates. Even if you're trying to do your best job at like controlling it, it still has a lot of trouble like not killing your teammates and being entirely useful at all times. I do like it, and it's still like a fairly high pick, you know, in the turrets, but like, you know, along these, like I'm going to bring the other turrets probably first. Mines need changes, and I'm going to put all of them here. Maybe not AT. Maybe AT goes a little higher, but I think they all require changes. Hi, Luna. I think they all do require changes, and I think Luna agrees with me that the mines have too long of a cooldown, and they're too easily griefed by your teammates. And what I mean by that is that you're going to throw it down, and the enemy's going to start walking towards it, but then your teammate's just going to throw a stratagem. And the stratagem is going to blow up your mines and blow up the enemies. And then your 3-minute cooldown is gone. Or you're going to throw it down, and a charger is going to run through it as it's deploying its mines, and the mines don't even get deployed, right? And some people in the comments, I'm sure, will say, well, that's skill issue. You should just be using it better. But that's the thing, is that like, if it had a lower cooldown, it would be more consistent at being useful. But what I just explained happens so often. And I'm not even including all the times that your teammates are going to accidentally walk over them. Even though they fixed the invisible mines issue, your teammates are still going to walk over them by accident if there's any unexploded ones. So that's like -1 HP, or -1 call-in, right? It needs a lower cooldown. They need to deploy faster. Maybe they need to deploy a second time. Maybe the pod comes back up and deploys a second round after like 30 seconds to 45 seconds. I don't know. It just needs more. It needs more love for me to want to use them, and it can come from a lot of different angles, but it needs something. All right, looking over the tier list, I feel like I'm pretty happy with it. Is there anything that I feel like has been moved and altered in a weird spot that deserves to be higher or lower? Probably like MG 43 going up a little higher. I think the grenade launcher can go a little higher. I think orbital rail can stay where it is. Probably orbital airburst a little bit higher. Eagle strafing, I think, is fine there. I think I'm quite happy with everything. Maybe like 110s being a little higher. Maybe that being a little higher. Maybe railgun coming down a little bit more. Something along those lines. yeah, I feel pretty good with this. Please let me know what you feel down below on this tier list. You know, I just, like I said in the beginning of the video, depending on playstyle, depending on team comp, and depending on just like how you approach your tier 10 missions, you might feel completely different than I. And that's totally fine. Let me know what you think. You know, I want to hear the feedback and see how I'm ordering these. But also, please consider dropping by the stream if you haven't been noticing. People have been talking the entire time, giving their feedback as well. And, you know, as soon as this video is done, I'm going to be talking to the Twitch chat and like talking it over and seeing if we're going to change anything. Also, if down below you're looking for people to play with, we have a fantastic LFG in our Discord if you want to just talk Helldivers. And yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for checking out this this video. Comment down below. Consider dropping a like if you liked it. And we'll be coming out with the rest of the tier list throughout the week. So hang tight. Much love, everybody. Bye, YouTube.